Last week's updated program pecking order elicited a whole bunch of emails, most of them disagreeing with my placement of either their team or their team's rival. I sprinkled in some emails throughout this week's edition that address some of the most common complaints I received. NCAA football, Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl, Alabama vs. Washington. Which of the Power 5 teams that won 11 or more games in 2016 is set for the biggest letdown in 2017? They are, in alphabetical order, Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State, Oklahoma, Penn State, Washington, and Wisconsin. Brian Stewart, Buford, GA. I know well from past experience that at least one, if not more, of these teams will plummet to something far fewer than 11 wins. And yet I'll probably end up picking all of them to go at least 10-2, in part because you rarely see successful programs freefall coming and in part out of fear of looking dumb. Why do you think all the early top 25 rankings out there are basically the same? But a good place to start looking is usually a team with uncertainty at quarterback. Interestingly, only one of the teams on that list doesn't return its starting quarterback from last season. That team is of course Clemson. And the Tigers, of course, aren't just replacing a starting quarterback but in fact the greatest player in school history, Deshaun Watson. So Clemson is the easy answer here. It's just a matter of how big that letdown will be. The Tigers are still plenty loaded, especially on defense, where Brent Venables' unit has been successfully reloading for years. Dabo Swinney does not necessarily need leading contender Kelly Bryant or touted freshman Hunter Johnson to lead a 40 points per game offense to still win a lot of games. That's not a realistic expectation. But the Tigers do need to be productive and take some pressure off the defense when facing capable opponents like Auburn, Louisville, and Florida State. And if they struggle, it might not be solely due to the new quarterback. Clemson will also be without first-round receiver Mike Williams, productive tight end Jordan Leggett and underrated running back Wayne Gallman. So, given all that, I might end up picking Clemson to go a measly 9-3. I know, so bold. 9,824,297 Newton NCAA Football CFP National Championship Clemson vs. Alabama. Will Notre Dame fans watch Malik Zaire tear it up at Florida in 2017 and wonder, what could have been? While suffering through another year with no postseason? Albert Cutler, Wales, Wisconsin. We'll find out later this week whether the SEC votes to lift a restriction on grad transfers that would allow Zaire to join the Gators this fall. No question, he's a big pickup for Jim McElwain's team if it goes through. Other than those 6 games of 2015 with Will Grier, Florida has been without a dynamic QB for what seems like forever. Zaire has shown he can be just that, albeit in limited opportunities. It's been nearly 2 years since leading that season-opening rout of Texas a week before breaking his ankle and watching DeShone Kizer supplant him. But no, I don't believe it will be quite that dramatic. Zaire is a solid dual-threat quarterback, but he's not going to come out and win the Heisman at Florida. A more realistic expectation is that he performs a notch better than fellow ex-Stomer Everett Golson did in his one season at Florida State. Furthermore, his old school should be just fine at quarterback with Brandon Wimbush, a former top 50 recruit who bided his time behind Kizer and Zaire the past 2 seasons, redshirting in 2016. I will be very surprised if the Irish miss a bowl this season. They weren't nearly as bad as their 4-8 record last year, finishing in the top 30 in the F/Plus efficiency rankings, and I expect new DC Mike Elko to generate considerable improvement on that side of the ball. Perhaps they'll be that team no one sees coming that jumps from 4-8 to 11-1. I'll probably pick them to go 7-5. You know, bold. 082316 Notre Dame Malik Zaire. Hi Stuart, I am a Nebraska fan and completely agree with our demotion to Barron. What I don't understand is why Michigan gets a free pass with just one national championship, 20 years ago, since the Korean War and going 13 years since its last Big Ten title. I get the point about the stadium, recruiting brand and the iconic uniform, but surely to be a king you have to, at some point, do it on the football field. Roger, London, UK. I'll be honest, I was surprised how many of you chimed in with similar feelings about Michigan. It never remotely occurred to me to drop that school. It is, after all, a ranking of schools by perceived prestige. No question, the Wolverines had a rough decade on the field from about 2005-14, but the program lost maybe a tiny little snippet of prestige during that time. And since Mr. Harbaugh arrived, that program has received more attention than any in the country not named Alabama. Sorry, but Harbaugh's not dominating the social media, news cycle at anywhere near this level.